Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
This episode discusses kidnapping and knife violence. Listener discretion is advised.
This is a serialized podcast, so I suggest that you start at episode 1 to enjoy the whole story.
Beware, my friend, trouble roads are to come. Tall grass, long snakes, fall not through their charm. Lift your head, forget the dance in your pride. Sometimes in life we need to be fooled twice.
Fool Me Twice follows the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, in her attempts to find love online. I'm Zara Hannaford, and in this series, I'm trying to understand romance scams, why people fall for them, and how they work. Roger A. Grimes shares some insight into why my mother's situation was quite unique.
Well, I have to ask you, because it's so rare, how did your mother finally come to the conclusion it was a scam? I read the text around it where he finally said, hey, I need this amount of money, but I'm wondering, because I need to help other victims, how did she finally make the break before she'd lost everything? Because that's kind of a rarity.
My theory is that Truman was completely out of his depth being in my mum's presence. There came a point where he realized that he'd reached the limit of what he could get from her, so he caused a fight to get her to leave. Here's Roger Grimes' perspective on that theory.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I would definitely say that, in your podcast and the book, that the meeting of the victim physically and the continued scam, that puts them in a different tier. To me, it almost puts them in this tier of a generalized scammer. You have these gentlemen or ladies that scam people, black widows or whatever. Even before the internet was there, you had these people that would just go scam to scam to scam. And they're using the internet now as a way to facilitate it versus the Nigerian type fellows, which is it's only ever going to be over the internet, right? They're not taking a physical leap ever. It's not the intent. The internet was always the main thing versus what I think, your mother fell into. This person was a scammer well before the internet started being a great place to do romance scams, would be my guess. He's a real true criminal. I've heard a ton of stories where the same thing was done and they just continued to get scammed till they lost everything that they did go in on the property. And it turned out that when they looked at the property, their name really wasn't on it, and that sort of stuff. So, kudos to your mother for backing out. I've seen much worse outcomes. Your mother is the only success I've personally ever heard of. I mean, remember, I'm only being contacted by the people that are scammed, but I'm in contact with these family members sometimes for years trying to help them. And I've never heard of a success story like you and your mother. So there is something special that your mother did in the situation. But I think that there's some type of something we can use from it to help other people. You need to figure out that key component because it's a gem. It's like that zombie movie with Will Smith in it when he finally figures out that he's got the blood that will stop the zombies or whatever. Now I've got to get this antidote to everybody else. That's your mom's story. There's something in there special that we need to figure out and share with more people. So I'm delighted that you and your mother are doing this. It takes a lot for you two to do what you're doing, and I applaud you. And I'll try to spread the word and promote whatever you do. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing you're doing.
Here's Dr. Scott Musgrove.
When I think about Jules' situation, it's not the majority of the time that someone ends up making that travel. And I think that places it into a vastly different experience than the majority of romance scams. Most romance scams would never even allow any face-to-face. It's about stringing an individual on for a very long time, small amounts of money, bigger amounts of money, more. So what Jules experienced was really out of the wheelhouse in that the person was willing to have her come and likely felt like they would be able to sustain that even one-to-one. So that's a different kind of experience. The perpetrator in that experience feels that they can sustain it. They can sustain the faux intimacy, the faux relationship. And where I would get really concerned, without knowing all of Jules' history, where I get really concerned is placing yourself in a situation where really the potential for violence is very, very high.
Chapter 1. Count Yourself Lucky. It's a fascinating aspect of this story that it's unique in two major ways. The fact that my mother met her scammer in person makes it almost unheard of, and almost brings the story out of the online sweetheart scam saga and into the more traditional world of relationship scammers, who've been around since time immemorial. The part that I think is worth holding on to is, I believe, that Truman never expected to meet my mother in person. The way scams tend to play out is that there are professions of love, promises of the future, and then plans that somehow always end up falling through. The second part that's unusual, according to Roger Grimes, is that she didn't lose everything. Chapter 2. Police and the Sweetheart Scam.
While I was waiting for a response from the police, I did my own research. Suddenly, I found hundreds of stories similar to mine where people had been led on, fallen in love, and had been taken for everything that they had. I learned that I was caught up in a sweetheart scam where victims are duped out of their life savings. I kept reading and reading. So much of what happened to me turned out to be completely normal and common in these types of scams. It was like reading the events of the past months back to myself from the perspective of other victims all over the world.
Roger A. Grimes shares his understanding of how dating scams often play out and things to watch out for.
One of the telltale signs of a romance scammer is they don't have a lot of connections, right? Or they're new connections. Like you'll go in, it's probably number one is this handsome man or a beautiful girl. It's funny when they contact me, they're like, "Hi, I'm a model and I'm in the fashion industry and I'd like to connect with you." Like why would I immediately, as an old man, immediately discount that as obviously a scam? But one of the things I look at is to see how many connections they have and how old the connections are. Almost all of them will be, less than 100 connections or friends, and they're all recent, and everybody connecting to them are not really sharing anything intimate. So you know that it's all these people that are the initial scam attempts, and the people are intrigued enough to write back, but there's nothing super intimate or long term. The profile is very young. One contacted me a week or two ago on LinkedIn, and it was obviously a scam. I played along for a little while, but then I broke cover, and they wouldn't talk to me. Or in this case, I was very insulting of them. Just said, "Hey, I understand you're a scammer. Go somewhere else." The strange thing about the account was it had over 500 connections, and the profile had been around for years. And it really confused me until finally, after I wrote about this on LinkedIn a little bit, the person contacted me and said, "I apologize, my account was hijacked." That's all I got, but I have to say that I believe her because it was this long-term existing account coming from this person. Like that was the outlier. So it seems like some of the romance scammers, what they're starting to do is try to take over and hijack other people's accounts so that they don't look new. The average romance scam profile is very new, but if you hijack somebody else's account, well, the person in that hijacking attempt was trying to get me to a personal email account that had nothing to do with the name of the person. They're like, "Hey, I think you're fun and, looking for love or something, and you need to contact me on Gmail." And when I told them, I said, "Listen, I think you're a scammer. I know you're a scammer." They're like, "Oh, will you please contact me on Gmail?" Because they knew that hijacked account was going to be taken back over by the real owner, and they needed to get me to the private email account before the victim got the profile back. If a super handsome, beautiful person contacts you out of the blue, I mean, that's number one. I mean, that certainly seems to be it. If it's a small profile, not a lot of connections, doesn't seem to be a lot of information on it. But probably the bigger thing that I always laugh is that how ready they are to try to establish a romantic relationship right away, right? All of us normally, even if we're looking for love, are not going to aggressively reach out to try to romance somebody. But every romance scammer I've ever had, they connect, and their first thing isn't, anyone normal would be asking me about business or somebody we know. The romance scammer is always like, how you doing? I'm lonely. How about you? Right? I mean, like the first sentence, is this setup. And interesting, maybe one other story to share. When I was talking to that romance scammer a long time ago, I asked him, how come you have such bad grammar, or you're using ploys that any normal person should be able to recognize as a phish or a scam? It seems to me you'd get more hits if you took your time in the scam, or you're more plausible in the scam, or less typos, or showed, some type of better diction for the language you claim to know. It was interesting what he said. He said, we want to rule out the people that are going to not fall for our scam early on. So they intentionally include things that an average person would spot as a scam, because they're trying to move, 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 of these people, if it's a corporate thing, a month. And they don't want to waste their time on people like me or you that would very quickly see it's a scam, or might get in a couple of emails and then fall as a scam. They want the people responding to have already overlooked they actually intentionally put some obvious signs that it is a scam, because they're more likely to be able to take that victim to fruition. So I thought, here they are making these mistakes that most of us would know pointed out as a scam. They're like, yes, we are doing it because we need to rule out as quickly as we can the people that we're not going to be able to get money out of.
5 months after the incident, I sent a rather frustrated email to the inspector and one of the police officers who'd been working on my case. The police replied with this email.
Dear Jules, arrest attempts will continue until he's in custody. He's known to the police on our systems from 2009, and the photograph taken from this time by the police is most certainly him. On the police system, he is a named suspect for the crime against you. Regards, PC North.
Soon after, the police contacted me and told me they'd been to Truman's house and forced entry in an effort to arrest him based on the evidence I had provided. But he wasn't there. I was so excited I felt relief that something was finally being done. In my imagination, he knew that it was me who had the police on his tail, and he would know that I wasn't just going to disappear. In my mind, he'd regret that he ever dared to do such a thing to me. A month later, the police emailed me to tell me that they'd pulled him over in his car, and since he was known to them in the system, they detained him for questioning. He denied scamming or assaulting me, saying that we just had a normal couple's disagreement. They told me that even though they had enough evidence, they could not charge him since it was past the 6-month statute of limitations for this kind of crime. I was so disappointed. It felt like I'd been trying for months to get the police to take the case seriously. And now, once he was found, it was too late. Nevertheless, there was a small amount of joy in the fact that I'd managed to disrupt his life, and he clearly knew that it was me doing it. And honestly, I was a little relieved that I wouldn't have to travel back and forth to the UK if a case went ahead. Finally, after receiving this relatively small but significant validation, I was ready to let it go.
Dr. Shiloh shares her views on ways that people can heal from a romance scam and move on with their lives.
The way that someone can heal from a romance scam is multiple ways. And I think I always go back to a couple of core things when it comes to resiliency, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about bouncing back from a really troubling situation. Whether it included real physical harm or not, it's deemed as traumatic by the person because they have those emotional wounds. So when we're looking at resiliency, I think people have to have a very good support system around them. People that aren't judging them for the mistakes that they've made. People aren't judging them for behaviors that were actually shaped by a perpetrator, and not being judged for just being human and going off of emotional reactions. So I think social support is very important. That could include a therapist, because there's going to be a lot of negative emotionality turned inward. This is my fault. How could I let myself do this? Tons of negative narratives and cognitive distortions that could be helped in therapy. But aside from a good social support system, having really good coping skills, because there's going to be ups and downs afterwards. It may not just be those first few months after, but it may be the next time they decide to get into a relationship. How anxiety provoking is that going to be? So if you're able to maintain your emotional regulation well by having good coping skills, that's your solid foundation right there. When I talk about trauma, I talk about post-traumatic growth, and what someone's post-traumatic growth could be the bigger purpose in all of this. When it's a trauma, like a physical trauma, people may turn and say, okay, I'm going to be an advocate for individuals who have suffered like me, or I want to provide information to people on the front end so they don't become victimized. How you can turn this into meaning and purpose in your life is what post-traumatic growth is. That may not be something that every victim is interested in, and that's fine. But for some people, that is sort of the icing on the cake. As far as do I think owning your story is a path of healing and to combat shame? I feel like it is for a lot of people. It's not for everyone. And if they have found healing through other means and that's it for them, fantastic. There's not a one-size-fits-all recipe for people moving past situations and healing in their journey. But I think it can be a very important piece of growth for people, especially in a crime where you feel so powerless, to gain back self-empowerment in a way that is helpful to you. And also, I think at the core of it, they say, how is this going to help others?
Now we'll take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Bust a Rut.
Angela Hancock is the founder of Bust a Rut and is passionate about empowering her clients to perform at the highest levels in all areas of their lives, physically and mentally, both at work and play. If you commit to her superfood nutritional system for just 30 days, you will kickstart your health journey and create a sustainable framework so that you can enjoy a healthy lifestyle in the long term. You'll be embraced by a supportive community which will keep you inspired, motivated, and accountable. Layer her nutritional system into your existing regime or completely replace your current one. The choice is yours and will depend on your personal health goals. Healthy aging, improved sleep, increased energy, mental focus, fat loss, muscle gain, enhanced performance, better mood. These are just some of the benefits reported by her clients.
A warning for our listeners. This scam story may be disturbing as it involves kidnapping and assault. Listener discretion is advised. Michelle was 19 and had never tried online dating. She was a part of an environmental club on her university campus, and they had a Facebook page. One day she got a message from a guy saying that he was a member of the same group, and they started chatting. Strangely, when she went to the meetings, he was never there. One day he asked her out, and because she thought that they went to the same university and shared similar interests, she agreed.
I had never met this person before in person, but, he apparently went to my school and was in the same club as me. And, we had a few conversations online. It seemed fine, so I agreed to it. He actually came to my apartment and picked me up, which was my first mistake. I have never let anybody drive me since this day, actually. So he came and he picked me up, and he drove me probably about an hour to the next city over. We had dinner, and he's just, I don't know, it was really off from the beginning. You know, he kept giving me like N-log compliments and just constantly comparing me to like other girls around. And it was very weird. You know, after dinner, I was having not a fun time at all. So I was ready to go home, but he had insisted that we just keep the date going. You know, he wanted to go to a bar, but I was 19. I couldn't get into a bar, but he insisted that he'd be able to get me into a bar. I think we got rejected from maybe 4 bars because I was only 19. I was underage. And so eventually he's like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. We can just go back to my place. I can fix you up something to drink. And I'm like, no, you know, I don't like bars. I don't drink. I just want to go home. I had been asking to go home ever since dinner had ended, really. But, you know, he insisted, and he had driven me there, and I didn't know where I was. I had never been to this city before. So I didn't have much of a choice but to just let him drive me there. And, you know, we got back to his place, and he started just getting even weirder. He started asking like really odd questions, like, what is the rawest thing you've ever done? I don't know what that means. I still don't. And then he started getting like really defensive out of nowhere, just starting, you know, don't judge me for this. It's all okay. Don't worry about it. So he takes me into his house and kind of ushers me into the basement, and he locks the door, and he pulls out these pills, and he just starts crushing them and snorting them and drinking, and he hands me a drink, and he tries to get me to drink something too. You know, I didn't want to. I was really, you know, kind of scared at this point, because this guy is that I had never met before. I'm in a city that I've never been to before, locked in a basement. He's doing drugs. I don't know what he's doing. I just wanted to go home. And like the ever responsible 19-year-old that I was, I had not charged my phone that day, so I was at 10% already. You know, I kept asking to go home. He kept just ignoring me, and he started getting really like touchy and kept trying to get me to drink things or take these pills or whatever. And I was just really freaking out. I was trying to think like, okay, maybe if I can like run upstairs really quick and maybe run to a neighbor's house. I don't know who would answer the door at 2 a.m, but you know, maybe somebody would have some kind of pity for me and help me out. I should have described this basement. It was not like a furnished basement. It was very clearly like, you know, concrete floor. There was a mattress on the floor. There were like just these jars of what he told me was kombucha. I don't really know. It was everywhere. It was just a mess of a place. But he kept scooting over closer to me on this couch, and he started getting really handsy, and I was just a mess at this point. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was very afraid. He was clearly messed up on whatever it was he had been taking. And he ended up, you know, pushing me down, and he got on top of me. You know, at this point, I looked over and I saw a steak knife. So I grabbed the steak knife and I was like, I want you to take me home right now. And he laughed. So I don't even know what I was thinking, but I just like swung the knife at him, and it ended up sticking into his thigh. You know, he looked at his thigh, I looked at his thigh, blood started coming out, and I'm freaking out now because I just stabbed somebody. I don't know if he registered what was going on, but he's just like, yeah, okay. Like, he reaches for the knife, and so do I. Like, my hand is still on it, so I pull it back out, and I'm like, take me home or I'll stab you again. And for whatever reason, he agrees to it, but I'm clutching onto this knife for dear life. I'm not letting go of it. So we get back to his car. His eyes are completely bloodshot. He's very drunk and high, I guess, and he's like not even walking straight. But so far, this is my escape plan, is to make this drunken man drive me home, who had just locked me in his basement for probably about 3 hours trying to get me to take something. But the entire drive home, he's swerving in and out of lanes, and I'm thinking, okay, this is how I'm gonna die. It's not in a basement at least, but it's gonna be in a car crash. But eventually I get home. I think it's about 5 a.m. now. My roommates are gonna be waking up soon. None of them had texted me through the night to see how the day was going, so that'll tell you how close we were. So I get home. He leans over to kiss me. He's like, this was a great time. I had a lot of fun. And I'm like, I just stabbed you. I don't want to see you again. He's like, all right, I'll text you later. I'm like, oh, okay. And I get out and I run upstairs, and probably I fell asleep for hours, but as soon as I woke up, I went to the campus police to report this guy. I don't want him near me. I don't want to be in the club if he's there anymore. I don't ever want to see him again. But I guess whatever name he had given me, whatever name he was using on Facebook, either wasn't his real name or I don't know, but there was no record of him at the school. I guess he didn't actually go to that school. I don't know how he found me, but oh my God, I was, for weeks, didn't want to leave the house. It was very, very scary for me. I didn't think that I had been kidnapped at first. It was just a little afterwards, when I had expressed wanting to leave, or when I, tried to leave and he very clearly made it clear that I wasn't going to be able to leave, that I realized, oh crap, I'm kind of being held here. I think I was more afraid of being raped, honestly. I was a little afraid that I was going to die, but I think my main fear was that I was going to be raped, and I didn't know what was going to happen afterwards. And even if I had gotten out, I really hadn't even thought past that. I didn't tell anyone about what happened for years. I think actually it was just a couple months ago that I finally told one of my friends. I didn't go on dates for probably about 2 years. Didn't really speak to anybody new. I was kind of very suspicious of everyone. Yeah, I think for a long time I was really I had done something stupid by not only agreeing to go out with a guy I'd never technically met just because he said that we had seen each other before, but that I got in a car with him, and I just felt that everyone would be mad at me for it. So I blamed myself for a really long time, and it's only recently that I decided that, yeah, I did something stupid, but that doesn't mean I deserved everything that had happened. I feel like, it would be good to talk about. It would be also good that if anyone else went through something similar, that they know, it's not their fault. It's something that we have to be open and honest about. While that experience did put me off of dating for a couple of years, I did try online dating again, I think probably when I was about 23, or I guess for the first time. So it didn't completely put me off of meeting strangers from the internet. It just did make me really paranoid. Like I said, I've never let anyone drive me since then. I don't even let people know what my car looks like or where I live if I'm going to meet them online. But I would definitely tell at least one person about it. Let them know who you're going with, where you're going, what time, you plan to be back. As many details as you can give, really, if you're, maybe what kind of car they're driving or a picture of them. And just to have somebody to check in on you throughout the date would probably be my best advice.
Michelle is now 26 years old and reminds us that getting caught in these situations is not necessarily our fault. She's taken time to heal and is finally starting to share her story in a way to recover and to help keep others safe. Roger A. Grimes is a journalist and specialist in internet security. He has had an interest in online dating scams for many years and has been trying for a decade to interview someone behind the fake profiles. Thus far, he's only managed to convince one to go on record. Using her knowledge about the ways that scammers set up their profiles online, Jules went on Tinder to try to match with a scammer and see if she could find someone who'd be willing to be interviewed. There were a lot of failed attempts, since as soon as the men found out what she was asking for, they'd go silent. Finally, she was able to convince a 24-year-old scammer from Ghana to talk to her. He initially told her he was an engineer from Estonia, but was living in Aberdeen, Scotland. They spoke on Skype while he was in Ghana and she was in Hong Kong. He's been a scammer for 4 years, and he began by explaining that his reasons for scamming were that he lived in poverty and he wanted to try to build up some capital so that he could start his own legitimate business.
First of all, I started when I was 20 in Africa to make money as young, to start up something. To make money, make capital, then you can start up something. Somebody taught me. You have to open many sites, dating sites. They will give you formats you can use to send to some women. Any person that accepts you, then you will talk with the person by email or WhatsApp. Say to them many love things that is so beautiful. If anyone is interested, then you can use some message to send to the person, beautiful messages. Many will think because you will talk with the person, give the person more time when she needed it, and make her happy all the time. Maybe the person is lonely or something like that. You will make her happy and ask her money if she can.
The scammer explains some of the tricks that he uses to ask people for money.
Maybe you have a son and your son is sick and he needed their treatment and you are not around because you're out of the country or maybe you're out of the town. Then you can ask her a little help just to treat your son or your daughter. And another one is when you tell the person you are an engineer and you are working in a social country like this. Maybe you tell the person maybe you are working in Canada or you are working anywhere around the world. Your ATM card, your card cannot work here. It can help you with money. When you finish the work, you can pay her back. That is the reasons we give to any of our clients. We use this client because he's the person that feed you, give you money when you needed it. That is why we call it clients.
She asks him whether he ever develops feelings for his victims, or is he able to keep it strictly business?
Sometimes you have feelings, sometimes business.
He goes on to talk about how successful he is in the business.
Actually, the business not easy because sometimes 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you have never gotten any cents. Sometimes yearly you cannot get anything. But if you are lucky enough, sometimes 1 month somebody can pay you 5,000, 10,000 USD. Per year somebody might pay you 50,000. I have not yet been paid such money before.
Jules asks whether his friends, who make large sums of money, share their secrets with him.
No, they cannot share it. Maybe some can tell you a little bit about how they do it. They can teach you. Some keep the secrets.
He explains how many clients he might have at one time.
As much. You can have one person and talk to the person for 6 months, 1 year, depending how she can provide for you. Some people have 3, 4, 5 at a time. They can talk to the person. When I was growing up, I was not thinking about being a scammer. I am a student and I'm a graduate. So there's no work. So in alternative, then I can join this to make money, to raise money and start up something like business. I will start buying some goods from China and send to Nigeria or Ghana.
Jules asks whether anyone ever tries to meet him in real life.
Yes. Yes, you will keep on telling them some stories to prolong time. You can tell them that they are coming tomorrow. Tomorrow you will give them reasons that will not come. Sometimes some will wait. After waiting for you, if they are tired, they will give up. I keep trying for 1 month. If you cannot give me anything, then I quit. I can match with the people every day, but if the people respond very well, then keep. If the people is interested, they will keep on communicating with you. If they are not, they will stop the communication.
He explains whether many people realize that he's a scammer.
Some believe, some could not believe. Some question, some I will tell them that I learn English. I'm not an Englishman.
Jules asks if he ever feels any remorse.
Yes, if you complain a lot, I will say, okay, I will stop asking you for money.
Jules asks if he works in a group.
I don't work with those gang. I work alone. And if clients want to give me money, I will find some person he will pay the money into and I take it. Like I said, if I get enough money, I quit this job and start something different. If I raise the capital that can be enough to me to start up something, then I quit. I stop the work. I pity those people I scam. Yes, because I don't want to continue if I have some up to capital to start something. When I was 20, I finished my secondary school. Then there's no money to further my education. So I believe from this I can sponsor myself to higher institution. So I met some people, group of people that is successful about this. Then I was asking them how you people make it. What business are you doing to prosper like this? They taught me this. I say from this, you're able to take care of yourself, sponsor yourself in any school you want to go, or if you don't want to continue with your education, then you can start up something. That is the reason I enter into this work. I earn enough to live well and pay my bills. I earn a lot compared to my people in my country, my age. I can boast of myself that I can feed myself, pay my bills, and can give to some people, my family, my friends, that is not okay. I share to the people. I help some people that is not capable to feed themselves in my country.
He shares how he communicates with his victims. He explains that he uses Google to write clearly in English, and that he can also cut and paste from things that he's written to others in the past. He can scam people in any language, thanks to Google Translate.
I go through the Google Internet and read from there. So when I communicate with my clients, I can easily communicate with them. Sometimes I will copy and paste and read very well. When I read very well, then I follow the what I have read before. I can use Google Translator, all right? Any mistake, it can help me to correct the English. I use many languages with Google Translator, any language in the whole world.
He talks about the type of client that he's looking for.
45 years and above. 45 years, 50, 55. Because this age, most of them does not have somebody to speak with, and most of them has never had such love message for a long time. So when you speak to them, they are happy. You make them happy. You make them comfortable. You be the accompany them. You make them to see as if to say you are with them, because some will tell you that Yeah, I've never heard this for a long time. Many will tell you that they have never heard it for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and 10 years. So when you meet them and speak such love to them, they will be happy.
Jules asks if he ever tells his victims that he loves them or wants to marry them.
That is the key words. And you make love on them on phone. Some have the money. Some will tell you they don't have. If they have the money, they will give it to you. Many will know that you are a scammer. Some will tell you, I know that you are a scammer, but I want to give you because you make me happy. Never, I don't tell them about my age or my nationality.
She asks if he's become more successful as a scammer over the past 4 years.
Yes, because I'm working hard. The last 4 years, I will say that I'm more successful.
He explains how many profiles he has online and how he gets his photos for these profiles.
I have 2 profiles. I find people on Facebook, the profile, then I choose the person from the more pictures he has. If he asks me, I love your photo in the car or in bedroom, in anywhere, I can Photoshop. Editing, I know how to edit, and some documents, I know how to edit. Because some clients will ask you document of your certificates of whatever you told him, and we would like to edit the certificate by ourselves and send to her. I will pretend and I will go through anything, engineering and the pilot. I can choose the career because if I want to ask my client for money, I can use my work as an excuse. Like if I said I'm an engineer and I am working, I have a contract now in Australia, or in Canada, and I am working there, and my machine break up. I have an important material to buy, but I run out of money, and I can use that to ask my client to give me money. Because I will tell him I use the money I have, because I will tell my clients that the money I have now, I use to pay my workers, and my card cannot work in this country. I don't have internet banking here. And my employer paid me 50% of the money, and I use the whole money to buy goods or use them to pay my workers, and I run out of money. Yeah, I ask my client to send me some money so that if I finish the work, I will pay her back.
He shares whether any of his clients or victims have reported him or tried to have him arrested.
Yes, they will say I will report you. They will report the picture. Maybe they will report the picture to scamming list. So when you see the picture, you will know this picture is not a real person.
He explains how he's able to get a phone number with another country code.
They say in Ghana, they hack the number and send to you. People hack the number. There is a group of people, it's their job to hack number. If you need US number, they can hack for you. If you need UK number, they can hack for you. You pay them. It's their job. I don't know how they do it because I'm not into that.
He talks about how he's able to avoid video chatting with his clients.
When people ask you about video chat, you can tell them that your phone is not good for video chat. If the person insists, then you can tell her to call, and you quit the call and tell her that the phone is not good, or you buy phone because there are phone we use that cannot make video call. So when he call video, it cannot work. But if she insists, then you know this person does not believe you because he wants video chat. Somebody asks you video chat, you can tell the person that you don't do video chat. If the person insists, you can stop talking to the person. If somebody insists that he needed to see you on video or on cam, then the person is suspecting it's not you in the photo you sent to her.
He talks about what he would like to do if he could have any job in the world. He wasn't able to finish his degree when he was younger, and he currently helps pay for his younger siblings' education.
I would like to continue my education that I could not finish because my parents could not pay my school fees. I quit. I studied business administration. I stopped in second year in my university. I felt bad I could not continue my education because I love education so much. Now I am helping my younger ones through this work so that they can finish their schools, their university and secondary school level.
Jules asks if he would like his siblings to become scammers when they grow up.
No, I wouldn't like any of my siblings to join me in this work because I don't like them. I want them to go to the school. Then I can, before they finish school, I could start up something that can join me together. I wouldn't want them to join me in this work.
He explains the danger of being a scammer.
This work is dangerous to me because sometimes I feel guilty myself. Sometimes I feel like I'm not happy with this work because I never meant to do this, but because of the circumstances, then I joined this work.
Finally, Jules asks him why he agreed to do an interview with her.
Because when you asked me this, I was afraid, but I said to myself, if you want to arrest me, no problem. Okay, I will tell you anything about this work. I feel dangerous that they could arrest me. I believe myself because you promised me that you are not to harm me or do anything. Then I talk to myself, say, okay, let me tell you about this work. So I pick up the courage and speak to you.
Now we'll take a break to hear from our sponsors.
Support for Fool Me Twice comes from Adelaide Independent Taxis. Next time you're in Adelaide and need a ride, call 132211 or download the Adelaide Independent Taxis app on iPhone or Android.
At the time we recorded this podcast, there was an interesting development. The FBI in the United States has named and indicted 80 individuals as part of an online scam syndicate, which included romance scams and was spread across the US and Nigeria. It's been described by the FBI as the largest case of this kind in US history. Of the 80, 77 of them were Nigerian, and on August 22nd, search warrants were executed across the US, mostly in LA County, and 14 arrests were made. On the court document, there's a list of 77 names in the defendant section. The plaintiff is listed as the United States of America versus this huge list of names and all the known aliases that these individuals have used. One of them has 5 other names, and most have at least 2 or 3. The names are like Son of God, Don Williams, Eric West, Sly 19, Ryan Giggs, Charles, and He is Risen. The accused are charged with 252 counts of fraud or conspiracy to commit fraud, using various tactics to scam individuals and companies out of money. According to reports, attempts were made to steal at least $40 million US, and there was at least $6 million already being laundered by the group. Videos from the news reports of the arrests show a dozen or so men in handcuffs being led by the FBI into a downtown LA parking lot. In a press conference, the assistant director of the FBI, Paul Delacourt, speaks about victims of romance scams. He tells us the victims are usually vulnerable populations, and that they are often used as money mules who are tricked into allowing their bank accounts to be used to transfer stolen funds. In other instances, victims were duped into opening bank accounts for fraudulent companies in their own names. All of the audio used in this segment is from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Central District of California press conference, regarding the U.S. and Nigerian citizens arrested for cyber fraud. It was kindly provided by ABC 7 in Los Angeles.
In the romance scam, victims think they are developing a dating relationship. when in fact they're just being tricked.
These victims are used primarily as money mules by allowing their bank accounts to be used to transfer stolen funds. Law enforcement agencies have received complaints from victims in every one of the 50 states and scores of foreign countries.
In some cases, the victims in this case thought they were communicating with U.S. servicemen stationed overseas, when in fact they were emailing with con men. Some of the victims in this case lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in this way. BEC scammers used hacked email accounts to convince businesses or individuals to make payments that were either completely bogus or that should have been otherwise paid to legitimate companies.
Some 80 defendants were charged, including many internationally.
The investigation began in 2016 with the FBI becoming aware of a single victim, a Japanese woman who became involved with an American army captain stationed in Syria after meeting on a site for online pen pals. He told her he was not allowed to use his phone, so they communicated only over email. After 10 months of emailing daily, the woman, identified in court papers only as FK, had incrementally sent $200,000, supposedly to help Captain Terry Garcia with his plans to smuggle diamonds out of Syria. According to the LA Times, FK ultimately made 35 to 40 payments, receiving as many as 10 to 15 emails a day, directing her to send money to accounts in the US, Turkey, and the United Kingdom through the captain's many purported associates. She was even told she would be arrested if she did not continue to pay, and at one point she traveled to Los Angeles because she was told a Russian bank manager had embezzled more than $33,000 worth of her funds. Maybe it's too obvious to be said by now, but there was never an army captain, and there were never any diamonds. The high-profile arrests have triggered reactions among Nigerians all over the world, many of whom suffer the repercussions of national stereotyping that comes from the well-known activity of online fraudsters. A Nigerian senator, Shehu Sani, went to Twitter to condemn the actions of his 77 countrymen. He said, quote, "We must embrace the reality that the image of our country is seriously damaged by the fraudulent activities of our countrymen abroad. The FBI charges against Nigerians must be seen as a wake-up call to do something now. Their acts stain us all and criminalize our country." In Nigeria, they're known as Yahoo Boys, and there were a lot of posts on Twitter around the time of the arrests from Nigerians lamenting these events and the way the rest of the world is likely to see their country. A new hashtag was trending, the list, referring to the list of the 77 indicted Nigerians. There's a much-shared video on Twitter showing a man at a wedding dancing on piles of money that litter the floor as he throws bill after bill into the air. According to some commenters, this is a video of Victor Chukwu, one of those on the list. Fears in Nigeria are at an all-time high around the repercussions of the actions of these 77. People fear the costs their country will pay, ranging from increased scrutiny for visa processes, a lack of trust when attempting to do business internationally, and being restricted from using international payment platforms. The stereotype of the Nigerian fraudster is also an unfair generalization in a country with a population of 190 million, with much less publicized successes within Nigeria's startup and tech industry. The FBI will seek to extradite 57 more of the Nigerian citizens it's indicted, and so far the Nigerian government's been cooperative with the US in this way. It seems that this monumental set of arrests, which made global headlines, could bring issues of online fraud higher up the list of global law enforcement priorities. Nevertheless, the FBI representative in the press conference tells us that we must still remain vigilant, that we can't, quote, arrest our way out of this problem. And we know that this is simply pointing us toward an age of increased cybersecurity and awareness of the possibility of online fraud. It's been a long road to something like self-acceptance for my mum. When she talks about it these days, she can tell the story proudly of what she learned from the experience, and is paying that forward by dedicating time to educating people on the dangers of seeking love online. She's made us all a promise that she'll never go and meet a random stranger overseas again. She's loosened her grip on her need to have a partner and instead channels the energy she would have once spent trawling dating websites into creativity and pursuit of the things she loves to do best. Fool Me Twice is based on a memoir of the same name by my mother, Jules Hannaford, and is written and directed by me, Zara Hannaford. It's produced and edited by Jules Hannaford, with music and sound design by Shayde Furlong. Our theme song was sung by Angele Meyerhoff. Thanks to all the actors, experts, victims of scams, and the scammer who contributed to this podcast. If you suspect that you or someone you love may be involved in a romance scam, please reach out to Advocate Against Romance Scams on Facebook for support, or contact your local police for advice. You can get your own copy of Jules' memoir, Fool Me Twice, on Amazon. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review Fool Me Twice on Apple Podcasts, and then please share it with your friends and family. If you'd like to support the production of Fool Me Twice, please go to Patreon and search for Fool Me Twice. For as little as $5 or $10 a month, you can see more of the Skype chat between Truman and Jules, receive online dating safety tips, and get your own copy of Jules' memoir. You know that feeling you get when someone is just a great listener, and you just feel like they've given you space to talk through whatever it is that's on your mind. And afterwards, you come away feeling somehow lighter, definitely supported. Or what about times when someone said to you, "Oh, I feel so much better after talking to you"? What was it exactly that you did? In times of grief or when people we love need support in what they're going through, we use this skill called holding space. It's pretty simple really, but it's definitely something we can practice and get better at. Holding space is a way to become comfortable with vulnerability and to make it possible for others to feel really taken care of. I've created an online course that breaks down exactly what it is about holding space that feels so essential to human relationships. I've included practical advice on how we can hold space even better for the people in our lives without depleting our own resources. That part's important. This course is for friends, parents, teachers, mentors, and kind of anybody who cares. Visit my website to register your interest. Enrollment opens soon. movecreateplay.com/holdingspace.
Hong Kong Confidential is a podcast designed to educate and entertain my audience. It's an interview-style show where many topical social issues are discussed and personal stories are shared. The podcast can be inspiring, confronting, harrowing, and at times hilarious. We all need to be heard to heal, and listening to the experiences of others can often help the rest of us deal with what life has to throw at us. Hong Kong Confidential, available on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Google Play.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.